Welcome to another episode of Purple Insider Extra. Matthew Collar here, along with Sam Ekstrom. And Sam, we have to break down a right guard signing, or at least it's presumed to be that way. The Minnesota Vikings bring in Jesse Davis, who has played both tackle and guard in his career. And it appears that he is going to battle with another Davis, Wyatt Davis, who the Vikings drafted last year for the right guard position. Well, we've got another training camp battle at the guard spot. Sam, are you excited?
It just fits like a glove. It's, back in the saddle. Here we go. I love your tweet about it saying that we've become like the best in the world at covering this. There are no other contenders even in this mix as analysts of this team. I think that Jesse Davis is somewhere in between the Tom Comptons and the Dozier signings of the past, but is not as promising as, say, the Alex Boones or the Josh Kleins. And those guys didn't work out amazingly either, but they had pretty successful track records. Like, it made sense why the Vikings wanted those players, and it made sense why they got significant multi-year deals. This is not that, but it is more believable that someone who comes in with 5,000 career snaps and like 80 games played is at least going to raise your floor. You're not going to have an Oliudo who like switched positions the night before the season suddenly and had 16 penalties. You're probably not going to wind up with that, but you're probably not going to wind up with Joe Tooney performance either. This is a move that absolutely screams average, maybe even below average. His PFF history has not been great, but he has not really been highly penalized. He's been a better pass blocker than run blocker, which the Vikings have needed. But you do worry, though, about him maybe hitting a little bit of a cliff at age 30 because his last season, mostly as a right tackle, was one of his worst.
And that certainly makes you wonder about whether the Vikings plan to address anything else on the offensive line, meaning would they draft a center? Would they still draft a guard? How much competition is there going to be? Is this job really Jesse Davis versus Wyatt Davis? And then we can confuse the heck out of everybody on Twitter every time we tweet about Davis during training camp or preseason. But is there more to be done here? Because this signing does not scream you're all set and your offensive line is totally fixed, as if it would have when they signed someone like Alex Boone, that was going to be a big signing for them. This guy is your starter, where now it seems like we're still doing that same dance. And I think that if Wyatt Davis were to be able to overtake Jesse Davis, that's a really good sign, because last year Wyatt Davis did not see the field at all and was mostly inactive. And it seemed like he was pretty much in the doghouse from day one. But, guys from year one to year two take big steps forward. I just wonder if this means that they're done on the offensive line and Garrett Bradbury will remain the center, or if there's more to do, because there's not a whole lot more cap space to do anything with, but they could draft people. They could bring in more bodies. And I think if you want to make it even a little bit different from the Vikings, the way they've handled things in the past, that more people still need to be in this battle than just Jesse Davis.
Yeah, undoubtedly. And Oliudo is still on the team. I mean, I think Kevin O'Connell indicated at the league meetings that he's still going to be in the mix. Wyatt Davis is going to be in the mix. And the question is then, is he Drew Samia? Or, is he not Drew Samia? Because everyone was excited about year two of Drew Samia, and that never came to fruition. So we'll see if there is that big stride being taken. I'm questioning, too, who's their backup center exactly? Like, is it Austin Schlottman? I mean, the Mason Cole's gone. He could play center. Dakota Dozier could play a bit of center. He's gone to the Bears. So they've really put a lot of faith in Garrett Bradbury's improvement here too. I think they need more help, but if you want to uninspire this fan base, then you go after a center or a guard in like round 1 or 2 when you have so many other needs that are probably even more pressing. It's kind of a pickle for them to be in, but they've been in this pickle, Matthew, for years now. I mean, they've been using half measures to fix this offensive line, bringing in guys that might be, the fix, but probably aren't the fix. And they've had very few assurances on that offensive line in the whole Kirk Cousins era. So it seems like more of the same. And we've kind of been saying this all offseason. Man, these moves seem familiar.
It certainly does. Let's talk about the best and worst case scenarios here. Assuming that Jesse Davis, who has been a starter for the Dolphins, ends up starting for the Vikings. In the best case scenario, Christian Darrisaw is healthy and takes a huge step forward, and the Vikings have great tackle play. And then Ezra Cleveland and Garrett Bradbury fit better in the system, and Jesse Davis, or if Wyatt Davis wins the position, they hold themselves down. Like, they are not just run over as previous right guards have been. But worst case scenario is Jesse Davis doesn't play any better than he did last year, which was a below average tackle for the Dolphins, but he doesn't improve playing at guard, and Ezra Cleveland doesn't fit, and Garrett Bradbury doesn't improve, and then we end up with the same conversation that we're having. And I think that that's every Vikings fan's biggest fear, is that running it back in so many different ways as they have will also result in a lot of the same. And this new coaching staff believing in someone like Garrett Bradbury, or believing in the off the sort of trash heap type of guard that they're bringing in again, is the same mistake, thinking, oh, we can coach up these players, or we can make the pieces fit, that previous regimes were not able to do.
So Joe Berger, I think, was the last good guard the Vikings had. He was the guard during the Case Keenum season, the 2017 run. Since then, let take the top two guards who played the most in each of the subsequent 4 seasons. None of them have been in the top 50 in pass blocking grade on PFF. That needs to change. Jesse Davis is at least a bigger figure. He's 6'6", 325. He's going to be harder to pancake in the middle, as we've seen so many times with guys just getting knocked down and Kirk Cousins getting barreled into. But there are still a lot of question marks on this line. I mean, I don't think you can definitively say that Christian Darrisaw is going to be excellent. Like, I mean, we saw him for about 2/3 of a season, and he was good. I have a lot of hope for Christian Darrisaw, but progress is not always linear, as we always say. So there could even be a step back or a plateau here in season 2. That's at least a possibility you have to acknowledge. Same for Ezra Cleveland. I think the trajectory is good, but will that continue upward? I don't know. Garrett Bradbury certainly has the most room for improvement, but he's getting to an age where, is there much more meat on the bone for him? After what we've seen for 3 years, I'm not convinced. So I still think Brian O'Neill is the only surefire guy on this line. And then all the young players still need to take an additional step for, I think, the best case scenario to really play out.
Right. Garrett Bradbury getting benched last year and talking with us about getting benched, saying that he was playing too much to be neutral and not to win reps, and he needs to be more aggressive. And so we go into another year saying, well, can he do this or can he do that? At some point, it becomes like other players that have gone down this road, like Laquan Treadwell. At first, it's, well, maybe if he improves his route running. And then a couple of years into that, you go, there's too far to go. However, Kevin O'Connell has seemed to show some belief that his scheme will improve the center play, and center play in Los Angeles, where Kevin O'Connell comes from, has been very good with guys like, Brian Allen, who became a very good player for them. But it's one of those things that, we're often asked to talk ourselves into it as we go along in these off seasons, that the offensive line could be better, and might be have to seem to believe, I think, in this case. So if you want to hear our longer conversations about the signing of Jesse Davis and much more, listen to the Purple Insider podcast, and always subscribe here and check out purpleinsider.com as well. And we'll catch you next time.